This podcast is coming to you from Wongal, Gadigal, and Birrabirragal country, also known as Balmain, where the Global Centre for Social Justice and Advocacy Leadership is located. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the country we share and agree that sovereignty was never ceded. So, a new year and a new episode of A JustER Generation. We have as a visitor to the Edmund Rice Centre, Mr. Uili Lousi. Uili is an internationally recognised artist and climate advocate from Tonga. According to one bio, his journey began through an interest in philosophy, logic, physics, and mathematics. Willie has used his art practice as a means of communicating and advocating for Tonga and the Pacific with audiences all over the world, notably through his artwork Pato Tui Tonga. Willie is president and founder of the Ohai Tonga, an NGO, which is an NGO devoted to raising awareness about the impact of climate change for island nations. Malo lele, and welcome to A JustER Generation, Willie.
Yeah, Manuel, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today and hosting me myself as well. Dr. Lopi Atukefu, what an honor for me. I just want to acknowledging the First Nation and the land and also the protocol behind all of that. It's wonderful for me to allow me to speak on behalf of the Kingdom of Tonga.
First question is for those who have been following what's been happening in Tonga since the eruption of Hunga Hapai. Can you give your own reflections and update of life in Tonga post eruption?
I think as well with the post eruption as well. We got locked down in New Zealand, you know, and then we arrived into Tonga around about May or June, I believe, 2021. After the lockdown we had in New Zealand because of the eruption as well, so I wasn't in Tonga to witnessing what was going on, but I seen like how we seeing like yourself or the pictures and everything what took place in the Kingdom of Tonga.
Mm.
What really related to me, what really moves me, is the spirit of us who are, as we say, we are Tongan. We just bring ourselves and act with this means what we have and the supporting of other foreign countries, including New Zealand, Australia, and Japan, and everywhere else from around the world. They came to Tonga to support Tonga, especially the biggest cleanup of the ashes in Tonga. So when I arriving into Tonga, I was staying at the actual hotel, the hotel that one of the only hotel in Tonga, the Tanoa Hotel. So to be seeing the spaces on that time to where it was, we're seeing on TV as well, was quite unbelievable how they can transform themselves in a short amount of time
Mm.
through sheer will and hard work.
No, it's great. I mean, it's great to hear of the resilience of Tonga and of the people in Tonga to what was a pretty cataclysmic event. I mean, fortunately, there weren't that many lives lost as a result, but obviously, there's been hardship created by the impact of the volcanic eruption on people's livelihoods, on some communities that had to leave their homes and find new places to live as a result of that. And in some ways, that's a part of perhaps a longer term story that may need to be thought about in terms of climate change and climate displacement for parts of the Pacific, that where people have to find different alternative places to find homes and to find their the place which they see as part of who they are, and I think that's something which is quite an interesting prelude to perhaps some of the bigger conversations, that are going to be there for the Pacific going forward. Or hopefully not in as big an impact as may some predict, but may in future be part of it. I'm just interested in your journey, and the decision that took you from your early life and career into being an artist and advocate for climate justice. what steps did you take, that brought you to that point?
That's a good question. I think that on a personal level, I do not normally share this, but as part of my art practice, it's living a very simple life, including do not eat too much, including my way of living, way of my practice as well. As part of my practice being an artist, I do yoga on a daily basis, and which is one of my greatest quests since arriving into New Zealand since 1988. I still do that up to now as well. But I'm also looking at the health issues as well as part of the climate change impact too, on mental health, but also on what we are facing in Tonga as well, and also in the Pacific with the NTC, increasing all the heart diseases and everything. Um, you know, which is one of the biggest major catastrophe at the moment in the Kingdom of Tonga, is our health. But that's most of them don't realizing how health are so relevant and so important for advocating adaptation on climate change,
Mm,
which most people don't really see that how important it is to be healthy. Especially for me, being on a world stage and everything, it requires substantial amount of energy. Traveling, able to be on 100% most of the time of conversation as well, and attention into details and also engagement as well. So to bring it back into what you were asking, how important of all of this, um, for me personally, my practice is part of my practice is being able to realize that myself personally has a not a position, but has a driven forces that I can utilize my art practice in conveying the spaces around the world on the global spaces, how important climate change, the impact of climate change for us in Tonga, specifically, but also for the Pacific. But I can only speak advocating it with my personal experiences in Tonga,
mm,
but again relevant into the Pacific as well, what the Pacific are
mm.
facing, especially with the sea rise as well and other natural disasters, regular cyclone and so on.
So in our Talanoa, you talked about some of the influences that informed your approach and the views on climate change and the impact it was having on Tonga, the Pacific, and the world. Could you expand a little bit for our audiences around some of those people who made a big impact on you as a younger man, obviously, and led you down this path of advocating on climate justice and and climate change?
I think as I shared on the Talanoa, which I never shared before, why climate change is really important to me. It's just because of Professor Futahelu. Before I left Tonga to pursue my higher education in New Zealand, he said one thing that's really draw even up to now. What he was saying about the world will face the crisis is about carbon emission. And if we cannot find a way to capture carbon, um, I'm not too sure if human can survive. And that was his words in Tongan. And that's my understanding of it. I didn't really take much notice of it, but for some reason, the way that I evolved my life, it's always behind me as well. And when I delve into being an artist, I brought that as part of my practice. And the way I was looking at part of my practice is living a very healthy lifestyle. Because for me, climate change has an impact strongly on our mental health and what we can adapt ourselves into this by mitigating, understanding always, not always, but incredible ways of, especially the Chinese way of how they eat their food, how the food has become a medicine for them as well. including the how the Indian doing their way of exercise, yoga, and also the way of utilizing food as part of the um, intake. So I was looking more on a scientific level, and I not only looking into it, but I also practicing that.
Hmm. I remember you also mentioned Epelia Haofa as one of the people that had an influence on you as a young man. And it's interesting because we are hosting the Epeli Haofa lecture this year at the Edmund Rice Centre along with the Australian Museum. And it's a great testament to a great thinker of the Pacific that, his, his wisdom, I guess, is being passed on to another generation. Did you have any reflections on Epeli and your interactions with him, and perhaps give our listeners a bit of a sense of who the man was?
To be honest, as an artist, I don't have a good memories. But I also, I'm a way of operating even up to now. You've probably seen that. I'm more on a present moment. I aware what is my engagement in everything. So when I came to meet Ebali, Professor Fudahelu always talk about him in many ways. I spend far more, much time, quality time with Professor Fudahelu, especially when he visited New Zealand as his emeritus professor for University of Auckland. I spent a lot of time with him. And he always talked about Ebali. I came across Ebali, however, in physical form. It was on 2006, and it was in Fiji at the time. And I spent a lot of time with him on that time, and together with John Pulle, one of our great artists of the Pacific. He's New Zealander. And we always have a great discussion then. And I remembered, like people a lot talking about him, but I didn't have much introduction to the man himself, but apart from Professor Fudahelu talk about him to me on a personal level. So when I met him, I took as much questions I could and asked him so much questions. And I remember his aura, his energies as well. And I remember he was invited as a guest of honor for the opening of the Two Great Brainley Sexual Art Museum, and it was live, and it was invited us to be at the French embassy in Fiji. And I remember when the whole thing was open, and then after that, the professor or the Fiji the French ambassador of the Fiji was asking if anyone had any questions. And that's when I saw himself, his energy, when he asked the questions about colonization. And I could not elaborate or repeat it. But the way that he asked the question in the name of art is just beyond way of comprehension of it too.
Mm.
But I utilize one of his famous saying about the ocean. The ocean does not separate us; it's uniting us all.
Mm.
And I think for me, I took it further than that with my advocacy on climate change. How important of us to listen to one another, and how important of us our diversity is what unifying us all. So I took that in a metaphoric way and lateral way of behavior changes as well. And that gives me the pleasure of how I'm approaching climate change in the world stage is through gratitude and kindness. And it's enabling me to look at this, at the problems, but also look at what solution what solution can be done as we bring that into it is a climate justice. I'm bringing my own climate justice solution into the equation
Mm.
and suggesting to them, what about this? So, and it's quite new for them because they're hearing but that's my background of being with all these great people. They trained you to think beyond ourselves. and what is the outcome for the future, our future children of the oceans.
I think on that point, we've had programs in the Edmund Rice Centre that bring arts and social justice together in schools. And I'm thinking in terms of Pepeli's way of bringing academic study and the arts together as a really important sort of bridging and an important cultural expression for the Pacific. As an artist yourself, how has social justice informed your art? And in turn, how has your art informed your approach to social justice or climate justice?
That's a $1 million questions. My intention when I do climate change, I'm not intending on any level, even on a social justice. My level of approaching it is pretty much on the solution, on a factual solution outcome. So I don't look at it. That's why I'm doing it because of social justice. I'm looking at as an outcome. So, and you can bring that as part of the of my way for solution for social justice. Yes, you can do that as well. But for me, how I approaching it is physically approaching on a level. I just wanted them to inviting them to come to Tonga, inviting them to have a conversation, inviting them what they can be part of, especially when you bring that into the community base. For
Mm.
example, in Tonga.
Mm. So, what are the issues that you would like audiences of our podcast and generally to take away from this conversation, and what can they do to make a difference from your perspective?
I think there's a couple of things. One of the things I wanted them to know that I'm part of the problems. And I can say this on behalf. When I exist as a human being, I'm part of the problems. So whatever level of it, because it's accumulations of outcome to where we are today since the industrial revolution as well. And they're bringing the greatness to where we are now today. So, but I'm also could say the second part of it too, I'm part of the solutions. But the solution is not myself, it's a collective solutions. So we need to come together. It's what Abeliha offers saying. Our ocean does not separating us, it's all dividing us, it's uniting us. So I took that in a level of metaphor for our greatness of our brain, our mind, the way we think, the way we act, and whatever level of our career and what we do, expertise and what levels, so that we can be able to bring that together and work with our youth as a solution. Work with the adult as well as in partner with the youth, because the youth of today will be the adult of tomorrow. But I'm more looking on the faced realities, how nature-based solution, like here in Australia, you've got an amazing land, quality land that anybody can around the world can be thinking of the nutrition of the soil. I mean, I spent a bit of time out on the in on the especially in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and Egypt, up to Kazakhstan as well, and you can see how blessed New Zealand, Australia, and also the Pacific with the land. They don't have that level out that way. So I think the nutrients as well, it's important for our mental capacity. But what I'm trying to share here, how important it is us to work together with an organization like your organization of unifying and amazing energies to bring awareness, but also bring solution, including the First Nations, including the community basis as well. But I'm also challenges you guys as well to reach out more to not only here local community here, but also in partnership with local community in the Pacific Islands as well. Because you have so much to offer, Australia has so much to offer it as well. Look at the great thinkers here coming in. I mean, look at Abraham Offa. He did his work here at the ANU. Also, Professor Futahelu as well. He was studying here at the University of Sydney University, including our King Tebow IV as well. So Australia provided a foundation for the Kingdom of Tonga as well, including your amazing father as well. So I think the energies of Australia is really related to us as Tongan. I can only say this, but also as Pacific as well. And for me, what's important for me as an artist is bringing the voices of us, but the medium of the art is allowing the scalability to be able to convey my message in a way that I can invite great people, great fingers coming to Tonga and work with what our plan of action that the government of Tonga setting pathways to become circular economy and zero waste for the Kingdom of Tonga by 2040, which I'm part of drawing that, solution into Tonga. But that's in concept. But the solution I'm bringing to Tonga is inviting Australian amazing brain to come to Tonga and having a thinking tank into Tonga sometime this year. So the other kind of ideas that I have, I'm much, as you probably come to realizing, I'm emotional about climate change, about where we are now in the world. But I'm also have a high hope of us as a mitigator, as a human being, as a mitigator. So with adaptation, understanding of adaptation with the environment as well, to keep the resilience, in a form that we can give hope for the next generations.
Speaking of next generations, this is a question I ask all my guests. If you had three things you would inform your youngest self about your journey, whether to change or do the same, what would they be?
I think for me, first thing is just leave them to be free. And I think the parents need to hear that. Because most of us, we want to give our kids what we're seeing to what we could do ourselves. And it's very hard because we want the kids, a greatness for our kids. But talking about myself, the way I brought up, and I'm pretty sure you come to share that as well yourself, Dr. Alapi. How important of our children to be free, to make their own decision, and we are able to supporting them as a mechanism as well, because they need to find what is their purpose in life, and I see the outcome of that on the world stage. We have the capacity as a great fingers, as a Pacific as well. But when we're coming down to scaling our energy to the way that we can be leveraging ourselves like everybody else on policymakers and negotiators as well, I still feel that coming down to the basics, the way we're brought up, to have a imagination beyond of ourselves, have capacity that we can realizing what it's going to become for us. And I think for me, it's important to have our children, educating our children and giving them more opportunities in many levels, which is a big sacrifice for parents, especially the way we live nowadays. We don't have much time during the day because of work. Two parents are working as well. But if we can do a balancing act of this and finding out what the children wanted to do, some of us can use sports as part of our great success and great stories to secure our future. But I'm pretty sure there are other things as well that our children can be able to do, especially research, especially innovation as well, especially what can be related now to climate change. And I think the other thing as well, if I want to say to the children as well, Pacific children here in growing up here in Australia, how blessed they are. Because sometimes I realize, sometimes, especially in New Zealand, children in New Zealand, Pacific children in New Zealand, especially Tonga, they think otherwise, and I may be wrong here. They think they are not New Zealander, they are not Tongan. So they think they are floating between two worlds. But for me, I want to remind them the purpose of our parents bringing them over here is to giving them an opportunity to be able to have these amazing opportunities, which we can, and which we can always come back to Tonga as well if we need to. So, and I think the authenticity of what we're doing is so important. And the third things I wanted to remember to remind them, we are pacifist people. We are happy people. Just within us. And if we can, there are a lot of people using comedian as part of their career as well, but also it's part of our life too daily too. We people of genetically, we take things seriously, but we also take that with a big smile. So that's all I wanted to remind our youth as well. And the last thing I wanted to say to them, just climate change, it's here to stay. So whatever your career is that you're going to pursue, even in sports, I wanted you to consider climate change as part of your career pathways.
That's a great way to end the interview, Willie. Thank you again for being part of a JustER Generation, and all the best with the rest of your year going forward.
Thank you so much, and see other to offer to Malo Peter.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of A JustER Generation. Now it's your turn to take action. Change happens when we come together, so be sure to like, subscribe and share this episode, and consider making a regular donation to the Global Centre for Social Justice and Advocacy Leadership by visiting our website www.erc.org.au/donate. Your support powers real change. Together, we can build a JustER Generation for all.